This is Doug Ward from Tech Britain. I'm very happy to be in Newcastle with the director of Ignite100, Paul Smith. Thanks for your time, Paul.
Welcome, good to see you.
Paul, can we talk about your background to start with, please?
My background is mostly media. I worked in the radio industry for 13 years for commercial radio and the BBC. I left that to become a commentator, a blogger for The Guardian, and I started working with startups then. I created a mobile agency with one of the developers I met at a startup. I did a project called Twitch Hiker, which involved hitchhiking around the world using Twitter. And for the last 15 months, I've been director of Ignite100, where we are today, which is an accelerator for startups based in Newcastle.
So, for anybody who's not come across an accelerator, just getting started with that first, Paul, what is an accelerator?
Accelerators, there's some variation, but essentially what it does is it takes a group of digital startups, so startups looking to create product for mobile or the web, and it essentially gives them rocket juice. It exposes them to mentors, to workshops, potentially to investment, and to take that product from, it may be something quite embryonic, nothing more than an idea, or it might be something that's very well developed. But the point of it is to kick its tires. It's to take the idea and ensure it's as strong as it can be. So some ideas and some teams will come into an accelerator and they'll go through very intensive mentoring with other entrepreneurs and founders and business people and investors, who a lot of them have been through similar processes and been successful in the past. And their idea might fall apart, or it might come out stronger, or it might pivot, and it might change beyond all recognition. But the point is that we take these teams and we take their ideas and we give them the best shot of either failing quickly. It's better an idea and a team fails quickly, so it can either move on to something else or call it a day, or be successful. And so connect them with investment, connect them with tools, connect them with people.
So for those people who do know about accelerators, we've had quite a lot of them getting in touch, asking for introductions with people like yourself. What's the best way to approach an accelerator? What kind of tips would you give to people who are thinking to get in touch?
I think First start by choosing an accelerator that's right for you. There's not many in the UK at the moment. There's only 4, I think. There's more across Europe. There's plenty in the United States, which is where accelerators originated about 6 or 7 years ago. But we're starting to see, as accelerators become more prolific, we're starting to see them identify certain verticals in certain industries and sectors. So Springboard recently announced and is about to launch Springboard Mobile, just for mobile apps. There is a health accelerator for disruptive websites, mobile applications for the health industry. So choose one that's right for you. Geography might be an issue, funding might be an issue. There's different ways and means that accelerators fund startups. I think realize that it's about team above idea. I think any accelerator, we certainly would rather have a strong team with an average idea than an average team with a strong idea. Accelerators, by their nature, are very intensive, very pressurized environments, and a good team is likely to take a strong team is likely to take a good idea through, or they're likely to come up with a better idea, and an average team is likely to fall apart and not be able to cope with taking a good idea forward. So it's very, very team and very founder-led.
Cool. And obviously we're in Newcastle. What's your thoughts on Newcastle's tech community at the moment, Paul?
I think certainly it's one of the strongest hubs in the country outside London and Cambridge. I think there's a really strong community of developers and designers here. We have, I think, more than other places, we have meetups, and we get 20, 30, 40 people along to monthly meetups about Python or JavaScript or PHP or Ruby or design or UX. So we have a very strong community. We've got a lot of startups here. We probably have at least 30 that are ongoing at the moment. Some have failed in the past. We've got new ones coming along all the time. Ignite's about to introduce another 10 into the ecosystem, which is really exciting. I don't think we've quite gelled as a startup community yet. I think, but everything's there. We're certainly coming together. So there's a strong dev community. I don't think it's quite as strong. It's got startups in numbers. It just doesn't have it in community yet, but it's getting there.
Fantastic. And what would you like to see for the future? More collaboration?
Yeah, I think there's still a bit of people keep the distance, but I think that's more about Newcastle. I think people tend to get their heads down and get on and work than stand around shouting about how good they are a lot. I mean, Newcastle's famous for drinking and the like, and certainly in the past the likes of Codeworks, their initial events did a lot to bring the digital community together. Codeworks isn't around anymore. There are still events, but I don't think people have gone away. People are just getting their heads down and working. So I think when you've got very much a working mentality, it's more of a challenge to pull people together. But it's happening, and we still meet up. There's a group of startup founders that'll meet up occasionally. I think that just needs to solidify and crystallize a little more, and then we'll see some, a little more collaboration would be a great thing for Newcastle right now.
Fantastic. So if someone's watching this and they're a startup in Newcastle and they're thinking about getting in touch, what's the best way to get in touch, Paul?
I think drop a line. Everyone involved in startups, whether it's at Ignite, whether it's some of the other startups, most people are happy to have coffee. It's interesting watching the independent coffee scene in Newcastle develop along with the startup scene as well. The two are very much linked, and as startups grow, actually the number of coffee houses seems to grow as well to accommodate us all, which is nice. But everyone's really friendly. Everyone will take time out of the day to talk to people. So drop them a line on Twitter, always a good way. Get in touch, go along to a meetup. You will always meet people happy to help and talk at them. So whether it is the events at the post office on Pink Lane, whether it's Super Mondays, whether it's the Gateshead Hub, whether it's Refresh Teesside, there are plenty of events in the northeast where people can get involved.
We noticed recently about Beta Rocket. You were involved in that. Can we talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to think that accelerator programs, they don't happen everywhere yet. They probably will in time. They'll be a lot more frequent and in a lot more towns and cities. But while we have an accelerator in Newcastle, it has the potential to play a larger role than solely focusing on 10 teams for 3 months of the year. We can help support events. We can help support the ecosystem of developers and designers and everyone else. And we're fortunate to have an accelerator. By no means has Ignite been responsible for the community we have. There's other people who've worked very hard over the years. But while we have one, we can be a cornerstone, and we can support events that go on around us. So one way we looked at doing that is with Beta Rocket, which is a tech and startup blog for the northeast of England, which Ignite put some money into helping out with some professional journalism. So we work with a guy called John Hill, who is the former science and technology editor of the regional paper up here, the Journal, so he's very well known to people. And we try and provide an honest commentary about startups in the northeast. So that's not to say that we're cheerleaders and we will simply cover agencies or startups purely because they happen to exist. But when there's news to cover, we will cover it. When there's a story to talk about, we'll talk about it, good or bad. I mean, I'd hope that it hasn't happened yet, but if a startup fails, or something goes wrong in the northeast's community, then I'd hope we're brave enough to tackle that, and I'm sure we will be. So it's to bring the community together. It's another focal point, and I hope that grows into something of value over the coming months.
Fantastic, and we'll put the details definitely on Tech Britain.
Thank you.
In terms of the government, Paul, we'd like to ask what your thoughts are and how they can be helping the tech community. What's your thoughts there?
In terms of, I'd be worried if there was talk, and still is, I think, of rolling out the Tech City brand. I don't think the answer is to make towns like Manchester and Newcastle and Edinburgh and Glasgow and the like, or Birmingham, generic brands of Tech City. I don't think that helps anyone. I think the cities can stand on their own 2 feet in terms of identity. We all have very different strengths to one another. Newcastle is a very different community to Manchester, which we've talked about in the past. So I think from government, I think legislation is helpful. Things like tax relief, SEIS tax relief for investment is brilliant. Things like the entrepreneur's visa is a great start as well. So I'd like legislation in the top end for government to tackle. I think local government can play a huge part, and that is something that varies from city to city. Trying to find local councils who will support innovation in terms of startups. Obviously their remit is far wider than just entrepreneurs in digital. But as an example, there are so many empty shops around, there is so much property around. Councils have millions of pounds worth of property. That's a generalisation, but I know that plenty of them do. And it's empty. We're in a recession still. They can't fill it with people to pay the rent. So why not offer it, low rent, even rent-free, if it simulates jobs? So we're in the middle of talking to Newcastle Council about that thing, about premises and what we can do, and can we establish a permanent base for an accelerator if we do more accelerators? Can we establish a permanent space for a startup community, hot desking, offices? We have some space here on Westgate Road, but we keep outgrowing it. It's not a case of finding more other venues because we want to offer supply and then hope that will stimulate demand. We have too much demand, and that seems a ludicrous situation to be in. So hopefully we can work with the council on things like property and ensuring there's rate relief there for small businesses like startups. And Newcastle Council so far has been supportive. I'd like to see that turn into something solid and actually come through with a proposal that can help us and help the community in Newcastle, but we'll see. So yeah, I think there's a job to be done at national scale and at a local level too.
Fantastic. I must say, when we first set out on our UK Tech Britain tour, Paul was very, very welcoming, and even though this has been quite a serious interview, Paul's very approachable. So anybody out there who's thinking, oh, he's coming across a bit serious, he's always having a good laugh. And
smile very much.
So yeah, no, I'd just like to say thank you very much for your time, Paul. Real pleasure. Thank you.
All the best.
Cheers.